Andrew, this is Jennifer. Can you switch me back over to host? And we're up on YouTube right now.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Mayor, how are you?
I'm doing well. Feels like we got our commission off to a good start already, doesn't it?
I think so. As long as we start listening to those young people, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, oh boy, it looks like everybody's signing on in. Good. Okay. Let's see, are we on time? We're on time. I think everybody's with us pretty much. I see most everybody. And I think Vanessa's still on leave this week. So I'd like to call our meeting to order, and I'll ask Jennifer if you would please call the roll for us.
Councilwoman Del Chapo.
Here.
Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin.
He's here.
Here.
Councilmember Rappel.
I'm here.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
I'm here, thank you. And again, without no rhyme or reason, Councilmember Gregory, could I call on you to say a brief prayer for us this evening?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we come to you with heavy hearts, but a mindful and strong spirit to make sure that we as a city do what's right for our citizens. Lord, I think where we are now is we've been quiet, but not at peace. And I do think that we are on the verge of something that is bigger than all of us, not just in our city, but in our state and the world. And as public servants, we must pledge ourselves to do what's right for the greater good. All these in your blessings, Lord. Amen.
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 Thank you very much. As Councilmember Griffin pointed out to me earlier today, we're going to try to get away from these emergency meetings, but we did want to give an update on public safety, given the events of the past week and looking forward to this weekend. But also we added to, since we were having a meeting and there was a matter that we missed the deadline for yesterday's agenda that Ms. Johnson has. And if you don't mind, I think we'll take that first because the chief might have been a little delayed getting online. And so this would require city council approval. And if I could just, if y'all don't mind, we'll go to number 5 first or next and ask Gianna if she would make a presentation about what we're doing here.
Certainly, and Mayor, thank you, and thank you, council members, for your consideration of this item. Basically, what you have before you is the Memorandum of Understanding, or a template of a Memorandum of Understanding. We would enter into this MOU with the various organizations that we are working with to provide shelter to our homeless residents. And basically, the MOU outlines what the city would do, what the entity would do, and what the clients themselves are responsible for doing as they enter into hotels. We're trying to be very intentional as well about, as they enter into hotels, having a plan of action relative to long-term housing, and typically for these residents, that is rental housing. So we are working directly with 180 Place, Military Community Connections at the Navigation Center, and several other nonprofits in our community to facilitate this action. And we've done one little trial run, and it worked well. And so we're ready to jump in full steam. And I would only ask that as you review this doc, that you recognize that in the document itself, we had a July 31st date. That should be December 31st. And I would also mention, again, we're trying to assist these persons with transitioning from homelessness to housing. And we're trying to minimize the stay in the hotel so that we maximize the stay in long-term rental housing. Thanks again for your consideration.
Right. Well, thank you. And we appreciate the partnership with 180 Place and with the Navigation Center. Been kind of an unusual situation over the last couple of months with COVID-19, that 180 Place, even though some spaces opened up for guests, they really weren't taking on new guests. And so this allows them to make sure their new guests are pre-screened for success for future housing, but they're also ensured that they're COVID-free before they enter the homeless shelter. So any questions or comments for Ms. Johnson on this matter? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I don't really have any questions. I think this is a very timely, obviously, and strategic set of understandings that we're about to undertake. So I would move for approval.
Okay.
That,
Second.
authorize you to sign.
All right. Thank you. Note that I don't know if it requires an amendment, but correction that the date, that the effective date will run, the agreements run through the end of this calendar year through December 31st. Any other questions or comments about it? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. And just for clarity, that's for both agreements, one with 180 Place and one with Military Community Connections. So anyway, they've been doing a yeoman's job for us. So next, it's really not on the agenda, but Shannon Scaff is here. And since we're having an emergency meeting and that was somewhat related to COVID-19. Let's go ahead and stay on COVID-19 for just a few more minutes. Shannon, do you want to give us a brief update on that situation?
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I have a quick brief for you. I'll talk a little bit about the weather as well. All 6 objectives for COVID-19 remain the same. I mentioned the weather. According to National Weather Service Charleston, minor coastal flooding is possible with evening high tides into the weekend. The tidal forecast 7-1 at 7:55 this evening, a 7 at 8:47 tomorrow night, and a 6-5 at 9:38 on Saturday night. I know you've all seen the tropical storm down in the Gulf. Tropical storm Cristobal is currently entering Guatemala with winds at 40 miles an hour max sustained and is expected to turn north and head towards Louisiana Monday. Back to COVID. There are now 1,867,595 U.S. COVID-19 cases and 107,915 deaths as of 5 p.m. today. That's according to the Johns Hopkins COVID tracker. According to DHEC's latest report at 3:15 today, June 4th, there were 13,005 cases, averaging 268 new cases per day over a 7-day period, and 525 confirmed deaths attributed to COVID-19, with a statewide case fatality rate of 4.3. Dr. French with MUSC stated in his report yesterday that the increase in cases is due to a decrease in social distancing. The latest DHEC report states Charleston County had a total of 683 cases, averaging 15 cases per day over a 7-day period, and 13 confirmed deaths, with at least 279 of those cases having occurred within the city of Charleston. The city of Charleston's growth rate for the number of reported COVID-19 cases in the last week has increased from 1.6 to 1.8, now averaging 6 cases per day over a 7-day period. For Berkeley County, there are currently 253 reported cases, averaging 3 cases per day over a 7-day period, and 17 confirmed deaths for Berkeley County. The low country case fatality rate, which includes Charleston and Berkeley counties, is currently 4, up from 3.5. In terms of keeping order in the city, routes have been completed for the week. Sidewalk damage last week and last Saturday have all been repaired. There will be 3 trash crews and 3 garbage crews coming through this weekend to assist with Gadsden Green, King, and Market Street areas. The Charleston Fire Department responded to 2 possible COVID-19 patients in the last 7 days, with overall medical call volume also remaining lower than average compared to the previous year. Livability partnered with police, fire departments, and traffic and transportation with temporary road closures in areas damaged by protesters to allow owners to secure and repair their properties. Livability responded to 42 locations where protesters painted graffiti on public and private properties and removed the same. Since last Thursday, May 28th, walking, motorized, and carriage tours were monitored for social distancing and sanitizing recommendations. Most were found to be in compliance. There continues to be no reported issues with police or fire personnel lacking PPE during calls for service, with 1,260 employees accounted for in 14 of 15 departments reporting. 53% are in the office, 4% are working from home, 36% in the field, and 7% on some type of leave. The Citizen Services Desk has averaged about 200 calls per day over the last week. The busiest day was Monday following the disturbances downtown, where they received 400 calls. The Citizen Services Desk received almost 500 customer comment cards on Wednesday after the link was posted on a Twitter post regarding the arrest in Marion Square of one of the protesters. The most common concerns were mainly with the protest. However, a significant number of requests were also for new garbage cans. Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau currently reports 52 hotels open in the city of Charleston and an additional 72 open hotels in the surrounding Charleston area. Pending your questions, that's all I have for you this evening.
All right, any questions for Mr. Scaff?
Yes, Shannon, this is Gregory. The national news is showing our state as having a surge. Is that accurate?
It looks that way from the previous numbers. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We sure have gone quickly from 11,000 to 12,000, now to 13,000 cases just in the last week. It seemed like for a while it would take some time to go from 1,000 to another, you know, and the average has really increased over the last 10 days. Any, and not so much in Charleston, but more in Charleston than we had been seeing. So it's certainly a condition of concern and monitoring. I think one of MUSC's metrics on their green, yellow, red spectrum actually went to red, the percentage increase. But again, we didn't have a whole lot of cases to start with. So from a percentage point of view, it didn't take a lot of new cases to trigger that one going to a red condition. All right, any other questions on COVID-19 or Shannon's report? So hearing none, we'll go next to a report from Chief Reynolds and get a recommendation about potential curfew for the weekend. Chief?
Okay, Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you. I'll just highlight some of the things that have occurred over the last few days, really since Monday. A lot of marches, a lot of walks, a lot of prayer vigils, and all peaceful. We have begun to build relationships in terms of with some of the groups. Black Lives Matter is very well organized, a lot of youth leaders and others who are really doing a fantastic job and have reached out and over the last few days developed a relationship with us, and I would describe as very productive. We met with some of the faith leaders and some of the other groups and are having a productive dialogue. And on the other side, as a follow-up to last weekend, have made numerous criminal arrests. And those charges range from arson to looting to assault on police officers to theft and a variety of other things. So the criminal cases continue for those small numbers of people that created the significant problems in our city last weekend. A lot of outreach to different groups in the community and a lot of conversations. We had a threat nationally against police stations to storm police stations tomorrow night at 7. I've talked to my counterparts in the state. In Columbia, they did in fact attack the police station. They did in fact in Myrtle Beach. And although there's not much being done regionally or locally here, we chose to board up some of our windows. And just as a precaution, we sent out a message today outlining why specifically just the police station, because somehow rumors got out there that the whole city was shutting down today at 3 or 4, and everybody wanted to have their windows boarded up. And frankly, it's just a precaution here. And we had to get a clarifying message out. I'm not sure what started all those rumors, but there was a lot of people that were concerned that there was information that there was going to be rioters and that the city was going to be in dire condition. We have no reason to believe any of those things, no information. Again, it's just limited to the police station because that happens to be a target of some of the violence that has occurred in other areas around the country. And so we have additional staffing this weekend. We have the National Guard, which is available. We hope not to have to use. It's not a tool that we want to use unless we have to, but they're available. We have other jurisdictions that are available. I've been on the phone with Al Cannon, with North Charleston Police Department and Mount Pleasant every day. And today was no exception. And they all have offered to and have resources on standby, and we'll have additional resources visible throughout the weekend in some of our busy areas where tourists and others come. And finally, I think where the mayor was heading is we've discussed a curfew, and I'll let him take that. But we've had a lot of discussion about whether a curfew is needed tomorrow night, and we've agreed, I think it is, and that's as far as we're going to go, is just for tomorrow night. And we talked about 9 o'clock being a good balance. And Mayor, I'll let you take it from there and answer any questions.
Well, I think that's a good report. Thank you, Chief. And that's the situation. We do think it would be wise and mindful of public safety, given the weekend, normally more activity, to have a curfew. We talked about the timing with some of our restaurant owners, and we pushed it back from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock to give the opportunity. Now this on the peninsula only, mind you, not West Ashley, not James Island, not Daniel Island. I have confirmed earlier today that the county is, at this point, is not planning a curfew, but we still just feel, given what occurred last weekend, that it would be the utmost caution and safety to just on the peninsula to disallow the late night activities and have a curfew. We'll try it again tomorrow night, Friday night, starting at 9 o'clock until 6 in the morning. So that actually doesn't require council action at this point, but I wanted to advise council what we were proposing, and I'll open the floor to any discussion, comments about it. Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, you mentioned the National Guard's available. Are they staged locally, or are they staged someplace else in South Carolina?
Good question. Certainly a discussion that we've had, because they're not any good if you need them and they're hours away. And in fact, I would say they're not even helpful if they're here and not geared up and equipped and ready to respond. So they are staged locally, and they will be geared up and ready to respond. We know the hours that they're going to help us, and they're in direct communication. We kind of, these things go through SLED, and there's a captain from SLED, Ryan Neal, who is the main point of contact for Chief Keel. And he's locally here, and he's available to kind of interact with us and to be a liaison with the National Guard. And they're aware of some of the activities that are going on in the city. And they have a significant number of resources that are available to help us, which we'll need if we add a repeat of anything that even close to what happened last weekend, which we don't have any indications of, but we're preparing for.
And I would highlight that we are not planning on asking them to be on the street whatsoever. They will be staged in their armories and wherever they'll stage. So they will just be called out if needed. Councilmember Sacrum.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. One, or two parts. One is, so Chief, just great job this week with all the moving parts. I know there was a lot of protests downtown, so great job to the department to be flexible and keep those peaceful. And I think it was a great all around this week. And I know there's more moving parts this weekend. For curfews on Saturday, the one request that I would make is, if we are going to decide on a curfew for Saturday, to please try to make that announcement early on Saturday, so restaurant owners can make decisions with staffing and such at night.
Absolutely.
And I'll just note that we've talked about, the mayor and I've talked extensively, that shout out to the business community. We don't want to do anything to negatively impact them if we don't have to. It'd be easy to just have a curfew at 6 p.m. every day. And but if that's not needed, there's not information to support that, we're certainly not going to do that. And that's how we arrived at the 9 o'clock only for Friday. And then we'll kind of take it from there and make sure that we communicate early and often and not do a curfew if it's not needed.
Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, thank you for all that you're doing. I appreciate all your work. Wanted to mention that this weekend originally was supposed to be when graduations were going to happen. And I know there are a lot of graduation gatherings. I think it's now with COVID and everything, mostly families and everything, but I've gotten some messages on asking, are we going to have curfews this weekend? Is it going to mess up our graduation parties? But I just wanted to mention that to you, that those will be, there are some that will be happening. The ones that I heard are not on the peninsula, but just wanted to make you aware.
Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chief. A couple questions, and actually, Councilmember Shealy just brought up a point. If we don't do a citywide curfew, we do it only on Friday night on the peninsula, and there are graduation parties. Are we not encouraging people to sort of move to places they might not be? That's more of a comment, but is there a difference in your mind, Chief, in terms of credible threats or danger that we have out there between Friday and Saturday while we're instituting a curfew on Friday, but not on Saturday?
Sure. Friday night is the storm the station threat, which is a general threat. It's not, we don't have a lot of information to indicate that we're going to have a serious problem here. But I can tell you we didn't have a lot of information last weekend, right? And we a very serious event that we never want to repeat. And so this is out of precaution. And I've actually heard from a lot of people that they actually kind of want a curfew, but a balanced one that doesn't kill their business, their dinner hour and things like that. If we don't, if we continue to see what I would describe as a peaceful protest tempo, a continuing effort towards, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm very, very, very optimistic and really kind of excited about talking to some of the people in the protest groups. And it's really kind of amazing. There's a youth movement of people that really want change, that want justice, that want action, that are really want to get in the weeds. For example, of our audit, they allowed Wendy Stiver, our procedural justice director, to speak today at Waterfront Park. They've begun to engage in all those things. So if we continue to see that in a total absence of any other negative things, then we will not have a curfew. I don't think we should have one just to have one. And I think that there are, I still have concerns. I had concerns, I just or information indicate problems, but I still have concerns. So we want to be careful as we make these decisions.
Thank you. And at this point, we're not saying that we won't have a curfew on Saturday night. We're just literally taking it a day at a time. But Councilmember Saccharin would certainly hear you. We'll decide on that and let you know and let the word out as soon as is appropriate. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, congratulate you and the chief for doing a good job. I know we got some detractors out there, but as I said, making calls on after the fact is a whole lot easier than what we're doing right now. But Chief, when it comes to Saturday night, kind of following up on what Councilmember Saccharin said, will we know, as we're doing now on Friday, whether we would need to have one on Saturday, as opposed to waiting till Saturday and letting the stakeholders know early Saturday morning or whatever?
So if I was to describe it in my thought process, I would say we could commit now that we would make a decision and communicate it early Saturday morning for Saturday night. And my deference would be to not have a curfew. I think I'm listening to our whole desire to get back to some semblance of normal. If, however, the tone changes, we have some events tomorrow that are not peaceful. We have some criminal elements that pop up, and we get information that this will be a real event at our station or anywhere else in the city. It could be anywhere. Then the curfew could be back at 6 p.m. on Saturday and through the weekend. I think our inclination is not to have a curfew. I mean, we want to get back to normal and encourage our businesses to get to normal, but we want to err on the side of caution. So I don't know if that helps, but that's I think our thought process.
Yeah, it helps. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. Chief, what's the morale like among our men and women? I mean, obviously you got a finger on the pulse there. Several days later, how would you describe their, I guess, outlook, I guess?
Yeah, can you all hear me okay? My computer, I think it might be my connection is not that great. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Your video is freezing up, but we can hear you. Or we could.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
That's a great question, council member. I got to tell you, this is extremely difficult for our people. There were people that were assaulted, and we did have one officer that had to get stitches and had some bruises. Actually, we had a lot of officers that got bruised up, that got pelted and hit with devices. And it's just like our community has been rocked by this. So have we. I've talked to senior officers, new officers. I think everybody takes great pride in being an important part of this and being able to stand in the gap. And any police officer who really is called into this profession feels good when they get to make a difference. And I think our people feel that way. But it's not a good feeling when your city is damaged like this. I promise you, there's not a single officer on a department that feels good about what happened Saturday night, Sunday. We're getting to a different place. I think, as Councilmember Gregory said, I think there's a movement that is really, I've actually heard our executive command come to me in the last couple of days and say, how exciting is it that we already have some progress that's being made? And a lot of the things that are being demanded, that are being talked about, we're doing. We have a long ways to go. We're not where we need to be. But there's some optimism, there's some fear, there's officers being attacked and all over the country. There's people who's locally have had their neighborhoods surveilled by maybe bad guys, paint on it was somebody in another jurisdiction near here where it was paint put on the sidewalk and on the road, killed police officers and with an arrow pointed towards their house and with some other insignias. And they have children I will tell you, it's a challenging time. There's a lot of optimism. The idea of race in our nation, police departments equally. There's people within the police department who've been impacted negatively by racism, both outside in the community and both inside the department. And when something like this happens in Minneapolis, I can assure you their anger is shared across the department. This is not just an external event. This affects everybody on this call deeply. And I can assure you the men and women in this organization care deeply about what they do, how they do that, why they do it. You can probably tell my passion. I appreciate you asking. The mayor's asked me that same question. And I will tell you, we have some amazing people. But you can only stretch people so much. And so we're trying to give them days off, realizing that we could have another busy weekend. And because we've been working on some really long hours, very stressful environment, a lot of the fear, kind of the unknown. But they're doing a fantastic job. I couldn't be more proud of them. And we got to feed them, make sure they're hydrated. They've been walking on all these walks. And they've been all over the city. I've probably put hundreds of miles on by now. And I very rarely, I actually can say that I've never heard one single complaint. But I know they're getting worn out and we're doing our best to look out for them. Thank you for asking.
Great. Councilmember Appel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one thing that I've learned this week is sometimes things that one might think are simple can be a little bit more complex when you start to take a look. And what I'm specifically referring to are some of these police strategies and tactics with regards to how we manage these various situations. And I thought it might be helpful for certainly myself and maybe some of my colleagues or anybody that's listening in to just kind of get a brief description from the chief regarding what is the intent of a curfew? How is it supposed to work? Why is it imposed? How does that interface with strategy and tactics? It doesn't seem to me that the folks that were doing what they were doing Saturday night are the kind of people that would say, we can't be doing this. There's a curfew in effect. But what is the goal? What is the strategy? How is it helping you and your officers do their job?
Yes, so you're exactly right. Just by implementing a curfew doesn't all of a sudden create some magic wand that everything's, everybody goes home and you don't have any problems. As evidenced, I haven't had a lot of time to watch the news this week, but I have watched it a little bit when I get home at night. And as you'll see, there may be an 8 o'clock curfew and there's thousands of people still out at 11 o'clock in different locations. So it's not a automatic fix. What it does do for me though, is it gets a lot of the people off the streets that we want to keep safe. The people that are visiting, tourists, people that are out having dinner that might get caught up in a violent encounter or some type of problem that we might envision that we would have in the city. It's not, it's almost like during the hurricane, a curfew just allows you to be able to get people off the streets at night that aren't, and whoever's out there are people that probably, shouldn't be out there, so that you can address those problems easier with less distractions and more effectively, and not get people caught up in what's going on innocently. And that happened last weekend. And so the curfew is not an automatic fix, but it's a tool, and it's a very effective tool. And I think we have to use it sparingly of helping get people off the street that really, and kind of clearing out. And then let's just say we have a protest and people don't leave. It gives us a tool to be able to say, okay, if people don't leave at a certain hour, you're subject to arrest. And it's only if that's justified and necessary and appropriate, but that gives us a means to effectively begin to address a problem. And it's just a tool. That's all it is, just like everything else that we have. It's not a fix.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for everything you're doing. And we got your back 100%. I think I speak for everybody when I say that. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Well, and Chief covered this, but our men and women of the department and our fire department as well, they've been remarkable this week, as always, really doing everything they've been asked to do. And now the effort to build relationships, new relationships, because y'all, we've all been in this community, all of us, and I don't know, I think I speak for most of us. I didn't know a lot of these young folks that are out there. I was at the Marion Square last night, and then I joined a group today of about 40 that had been marching. I knew some of them, and then another group later this afternoon that Councilmember Saccharin and Gregory joined me at. But there's a new generation coming along, and we've got to build the relationships so that they want to make themselves heard and have a protest, a peaceful protest, that we have this communication and a relationship going on. And the department has been remarkable this week, building just those kind of personal relationships and talking out where they're going to walk and where they're going to march and have some coordination about this. We want them to be heard. These are going to be our future. These are our future citizens and leaders. And anyway, they've done a great job this week. Thank you, Chief. And please let them all know that. All right, Councilmember Shea.
A quick question. Is there a march planned for Saturday at any time?
So I'm looking at a list actually as we're speaking. Saturday would be, trying to think, I'm losing track of my days. Today's the
The
4th,
6th.
Friday is the 5th. We have event, Saturday would be the 6th, 1 million against police murder. Nothing confirmed locally. So Saturday actually is looking pretty light right now. There's some events on Sunday, probably the biggest one being that there's going to be the Ravenel Bridge. I've been talking to Captain Arnold and Chief Ritchie. It's going to be on the Mount Pleasant side from 3 to 6, I believe, at Waterfront Park. And they're going to actually go from there up to the halfway point on the bridge and then go back and return to Waterfront Park. And Black Lives Matter, I think, is one of the groups. There's several groups that are kind of connecting together. And I'm trying to look at all the names of the groups, but they've met with, I put them in touch with Chief Ritchie, and Chief Ritchie had already been in contact with some of the original organizers. And I think that could be a large event. And there's a lot of things that pop up. I mean, some of the events today just came up really within less than a day, but they were all peaceful and they've been very well organized. I don't know if you saw Marion Square last night. They laid down for the period of time that Mr. Floyd had suffered with the police officer's knee on his neck, almost 9 minutes, and it was extremely powerful symbol. If you didn't see it, I'm sure it's recorded, but it was very, very, very powerful. It was well done, well organized, and that's there. I think this movement's going to grow. I think the energy is there. I think they really want to be heard, but they're working with us. They're beginning to kind of connect with us, and want to have a relationship so that they can do it peacefully and safely.
And just to be clear, that march is from Waterfront Park on the Mount Pleasant side, not our Waterfront Park.
Yes, correct.
Right.
And that was sort of my follow-up question, Chief. You're getting heads up on these marches and gatherings. So I presume these are not permitted.
Correct. Because of the COVID, that's the problem. That is correct.
Yeah, but you do have some advanced warning and intelligence on where because I see these police officers are out there in their cars following and providing some level of security with all of this.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief, for
Yes.
everything that you're doing, and thanks to your troops for all that they're doing.
Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, can we set a time now for a briefing on Saturday so we don't have to sort of get an email around just to see what happens? There's going to be lots of questions after tomorrow, what we're doing. So can we get a briefing set time for Saturday?
Be happy to do that. Y'all
Thank
want to do that mid-morning, 9 or 10?
I can't.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll try to find the time that's best for most, but we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, anything else to come before us this evening? God bless y'all. Thank you. Keep building those relationships and stay safe. And Councilmember Griffin, are you pushing off? Or are you raising your hand?
I'm getting ready to hit the button to leave.
Okay. All right, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.